now the kitchen smells really good between the gravy and the waffles. We're going to go on to the tater tots. Now, I recommend to do the tater tots either earlier in the day or the night before, because you're going to want to put them in the freezer so they can set up. They need to set up for at least a couple of hours, preferably overnight. So we have about 2 cups, maybe 2.5 cups of mashed potatoes. Use what you have. If all you have are sweet potato, then that will work too. They'll just be a little bit moister and you're going to have to watch the flour a little bit. So into the mashed potatoes, we're going to add 1 egg. Again, like the stuffing, it's going to hold everything together and give it a little bit extra body. We have a little bit of diced parsley. We have about a 1/2 teaspoon of onion powder. You can also add garlic powder if that's what you like. A little bit of dried chives. If you have fresh, use those. I have dried chives available, so we're going to use that. And about 1/2 teaspoon of paprika. And again, this is all to taste. If you don't like paprika or chives, then you don't need to add them. You be you. Make what your family's going to love. So we're going to mix this in just a little bit, just to get the herbs worked in. All right. I'm going to put in about 2 tablespoons of sour cream, and this is optional. You don't have to. I just like the extra zing that sour cream gives a dish. So we have a 1/4 cup of flour, and you're going to add this a little bit at a time. Part of the thing with flour and mixing it into something like mashed potatoes to make either potato patties or in this case tater tots is to be aware of the texture. If you add it all at one time and it gets too stiff, then you're not going to be able to work it. So it looks like I'm going to be able to add all of it. And you're going to fold that all in. You want to make sure it's incorporated, that you don't have any dry spots, because nobody wants to bite into dry flour in the middle of a moist and crunchy tater tot. So we'll give this just a moment to sit, and then we'll go on to the forming. It looks like that. Give me just a moment and we'll roll and go. Okay, so I've let this sit for just a moment and to check the consistency, and if you have to add in more flour, just a little bit at a time. I wouldn't go more than a tablespoon or 2 at a time so you can control it. You don't want it too loose, but you don't want it so hard that it's going to be like dough. So I have in this bowl just plain panko. We're going to season them when we pull them out of the fryer in just a few minutes. So you're going to take a small scoop or a couple of teaspoons. Just drop that in. And this takes a little bit of time. If you have small kids, this is a good way to do it. You're just going to coat the potato just like that. Pull it out and set it gently on the parchment paper. And I recommend using either parchment paper or a silicone sheet with this. The reason being is it will stick when we put it in the freezer. And you want to be able to pull it off and put it in the deep fat fryer pretty easily. So once I do this one, I'll show you how I shape them. All right. So again, it doesn't have to be rocket science. We're just basically gingerly pushing them into kind of the log shape. They don't have to be perfect. They just have to be close enough. This one's going to be a little bit bigger. But if you notice, it's not that much thicker. It's just a little bit longer shape. All right, so see how easy it is? They're in the little log shapes of what everybody's used to seeing. Let me finish the tray. I'll pull the other ones out, heat the oil up, and be ready to go. So that only took just a few minutes. As you can see, we have a tray full of tots ready to go in the freezer to set. When you put them on the tray, you can actually add a few more. Just make sure they're not touching when you put them in the freezer. That way they're easy to pull apart or pull out when you're ready to cook them. And one good thing about doing them this way is you can pull out as many or as few as you want. If you want just a little snack, you can throw these in an air fryer and cook for about 10 minutes per side. Or as you'll see in just a moment, we're going to put them in a deep fry fryer to get them nice and crispy golden in just a few minutes. All right, so we had a slight change of plans. The deep fryer that I have decided that it was not going to go above 300 degrees Fahrenheit, which is not hot enough in order to do these tater tots justice. So we're going with the old-fashioned method of oil on the stove or cooktop. I have about 2 inches of oil that I've heated up to about 360 degrees. And we're going to take one tater tot and gently put it in. Just to be safe, we're going to use a spider because nobody wants to get hot oil on themselves. And I don't know if you can hear, but it's making a really nice sizzling sound, and it will be starting to float in just a moment. So I'm going to add one more in. The purpose for the oil being 360 to 375 is so that it forms an outer shell without absorbing too much oil. And you don't want to overload the pan, otherwise it's going to drop the oil temperature too much, and it's going to take longer to cook them. Plus, if the oil temperature goes down too far, you're going to wind up having just potatoes and oil. You're not going to have a nice crispy tater tot. So it's only been, a minute, and we're already seeing a little bit of golden brown on the outside, which is exactly what you want. So I'm only going to do 3 at a time. This is a small pot. I pulled out just a small portion of what I have in the freezer. Again, you can do a whole sheet load and just pull out what you need for dinner. If you have an air fryer, it's going to take you about 20 minutes at 375. Make sure you turn them a couple times part way through to make sure they don't get too brown on one side. With frying them in the oil, they're going to go a lot quicker. As you can see, they're coming along really nicely. So we'll cook up this batch real quick. Now, while you're doing this, if you have any questions, any comments, any thoughts, you can go ahead and drop me a note to my website at www.forktravel.com or on any of the social media under Fork Travel. If you want me to see me try anything else or try a variation of something, go ahead and let me know as well. And if you try this recipe, make sure you post it, tag me, let me know how it came out. So we have nice, crispy, golden brown tot. With these, you can serve them with any dipping sauce you like. It can be mustard, horseradish, some sort of flavored ketchup, or even ranch dressing. All right, so I think that's about ready to pull out. And the other thing to remember is to keep an eye on your temperature. You don't want it to drop down below 370. And that's the other reason for doing just a few at a time. But see how nice those held their shape? And these have thawed out just a little bit because of fighting with the old deep fryer. But they're coming out nice and golden brown. Alright, let's pull the one out that I know is pretty golden and toasty. And we're going to check the oil temperature. And that's something you're going to want to do off and on to make sure that it stays about at the same temperature. Again, so the oil doesn't get too cool. So if you have a candy thermometer, it's an easier way to keep a constant temp. You just clip it on the side. I have a digital thermometer that reads out pretty quickly, but it doesn't pick up on the temperature changes as quickly as a candy thermometer would. But again, use what you have. The main thing is you want the oil to be a constant temperature so that the tater tots cook evenly. Don't those look good? And you can hear the crunch. And these are really good if you use sweet potatoes, or you could even use a mixture, do like a half and half. Just keep in mind that sweet potatoes have a little bit different density, so you're going to need to watch the cooking time a little bit. They also have more sugar than regular potatoes, so again, they'll brown a little bit faster. That's where using the mashed potatoes or leftover potatoes comes in handy because they're already cooked. You're basically just heating them up and crisping the outside. You can also add in a little bit of cheese before you freeze them if you like. Again, it's all up to you. What do you have? What do you like? You can make them spicy, which we'll do in just a moment once I get everything out. If you don't want to add a zesty seasoning, make sure you salt them as soon as you pull them out of the fryer. That way the salt will stick to the tots and give it that much more flavor. One thing to keep in mind while you're frying these is you want to use a vegetable or canola oil, something that has a high smoke point. You don't want to use an oil that will start smoking at a lower temperature. You want to cook the food, you don't want to burn the food or the oil. And once that flavor is in there, you can't get it out. All right, we're down to the last couple. And these really do go quick. It only takes maybe 3 or 4 minutes per batch to get them all nice and toasty golden brown. All right, well that one's finishing up. I'm going to put a little bit of seasoning. I can always catch up with that one when he's done. So again, use what you have, use whatever you like. If you like ranch seasoning or chili powder, use that. This is a Creole seasoning similar to Zatarain's and just a light dusting. But again, it's whatever you like. If you like garlic powder, then you can always add that as well. Or make them loaded tots with some chili and cheese. All right, I think the last one's done. Yep, he is all done, so we'll turn that off. And there you have your tater tots out of mashed potatoes. Really simple, really fun, super tasty, and good for everybody in the family to enjoy and help make.